buy that for $1.
You are a man on a mission. You are casually strolling down the street with your gun at your side, pulling it out every so often so you can bust a cap in the bad guys. No, this is not a typical Saturday afternoon on the south side of Chicago. This is Robocop, the hit arcade game based on the wildly popular movie from Orion Pictures. What's the controversy surrounding Robocop and Judge Dredd? So, dead or alive, you're coming with me, because this is the history of Robocop the arcade game. The year is 1987, and Gary Bracey, software manager at Ocean Software, had just read the script for an unknown movie called Robocop. Over the past few years, Ocean had been getting its feet wet with coin-op conversions as well as a few TV licenses such as Knight Rider and Street Hawk. They also had great success the previous year with a license for Platoon, the Vietnam War movie directed by Oliver Stone. They decided to take a gamble, and for a measly $20,000, they obtained the worldwide rights for Robocop. They were sent production stills, as well as VHS tapes with short scenes to make the game mirror the movie as closely as possible. In a rather unusual move considering their penchant for coin-op conversions, they sub-licensed the game back to Data East so they could create another arcade classic. Robocop the movie takes place in a violent, near-apocalyptic Detroit where Officer Alex Murphy is gunned down in the line of duty. Omni Consumer Products, or OCP, use his body to support their untested Robocop prototype. He vows to take back the streets and uphold the law. Running on the MEC-M1 hardware board, which is host to other Data East games such as Heavy Barrel and Bad News, which I've already done a history of video which you can check out to your right, the game takes place across 7 levels of run-and-gun action. You take on the role of Robocop as he battles his way through the mean streets of Detroit. You have a jump button and an action button depending on your situation. You initially start out with no weapons, using just the brute force of your cybernetically enhanced fists. But as you progress through the level, Robocop pulls his gun out of his leg just like in the movie, and you get to mow down as many bad guys as you can. At the end of each stage is a mini-boss, with you facing Ed 209 on the very first level. As you progress through the game, you'll receive numerous weapon upgrades to make it just a little bit easier to take out the bad guys. Occasionally, you'll run across baby food, which will replenish your life. In between certain levels are the bonus rounds, where you'll have a little bit of target practice. You can tell this was a labor of love because the attention to detail is second to none. From the little details in the graphics to the numerous voice samples straight from the movie. Playing this 30 years later, it still brings a smile to my face. Not surprisingly, this game is very difficult and was meant to be a quarter feeder, and believe you me, this does its job. Robocop was inspired by the character of Judge Dredd, the popular British lawman that debuted in 1977. While Dredd is still totally human, he has the same no-nonsense attitude that Robocop has. Robocop takes place in a similar dystopian near future as Dredd, is offered as a last word on law enforcement just like Dredd, and often acts as judge, jury, and executioner too, just like Dredd. Robocop's armor was inspired by the Marvel comic ROM. You can also spot the ROM comic various times throughout the movie. I was flabbergasted when I learned that
I'd buy that for $1.
is actually the same guy that waddled and quacked as he attempted to take out the dynamic duo, Burgess Meredith, aka the Penguin. Robocop was one of my favorite films, and I have seen it more times than I can count, but I just learned this a few months ago. Ocean Software had first dibs on the license, and they released it for a multitude of systems, starting with the Commodore 64, Spectrum, and Amstrad. In a rather unique set of circumstances, Ocean ended up sub-licensing the coin-op and pinball rights back to Data East. Ocean would then go on and convert the arcade game to the Amiga and Atari ST. For their previous licensed game Platoon, they used 5 minigames strung together to create one complete package. They used the same tactic for Robocop, and since it was so successful, they used it again for Batman the Movie, The Untouchables, and Robocop 3 on the Amiga. Since they couldn't get the game out in time for the movie's premiere, they decided to release it at the same time it came out on VHS. They struck a deal with Orion Pictures to include the commercial on every VHS copy. Right there, front and center, was the Ocean logo, and this helped catapult the company into the stratosphere.
Ocean Software presents Robocop, part man, part machine, all computer game. You've seen the smash movie, played the all-action coin-op, now experience the thrills on your home computer. As Robocop, you blast through the many levels of the underworld in the pursuit of justice. Scrolling shoot-'em-up action. You've got to be tough, ruthless, and lethal. You've got to be Robocop.
The first conversion we're taking a look at is the Apple II version. Right off the bat, you'll notice how fast Robocop moves. Clearly, Robocop did some math before his shift started because he is uber fast. Also, the screen does not scroll while you move, but it really doesn't hinder the playability too much. The game is fast and plays reasonably well. Next on the list is the MS-DOS version. Featuring the arcade intro presentation for an early DOS game, this one is pretty good. The animation on Robocop is very smooth, but the scrolling is a bit too choppy. Because this is an early DOS game, only the internal PC speaker is used, so the sound is not very good. Playability is good though, and that's what counts. The abstract version is a good attempt for an 8-bit system. Nice, vibrant colors and fairly smooth gameplay. We also get music while we play, which is always a big plus in my book. The Spectrum version is up next, and believe it or not, this was the first million seller from Ocean Software. This was at the top of the Spectrum sales charts for 18 months and got positive reviews across the board. Whenever I play these old games, I try to play it through 1986 glasses, but this one I just couldn't do it. It's a strictly black and white affair, which I usually don't mind, but the game comes across as very bland to me. The animation and scrolling is very smooth and does play reasonably well. The music is also very well done. The TRS-80 port is up next, and while I applaud the effort, the Coco was just not up to the task. Robocop walks like he's got rigor mortis. The sound effects and music are like nails on a chalkboard, but if you can get past all that, it's pretty good. The Commodore 64 version is up next, and boy is it a doozy, but for all the wrong reasons. First off, the difficulty is ridiculously high. You also only have one button to use, which makes shooting up without jumping almost impossible. But the sprites, while nice and detailed, look like shrinky dinks. The animation is also very choppy. The background graphics are fairly detailed, but the colors are really drab. However, the music is excellent and plays while you play. What absolutely kills the game is that there is a bug on level 7, which makes it impossible to get past unless you use a cheat. Fear not, true believers, because 27 years after the game's release, Hacking Group Nostalgia released a bug-free version of the game. Now you can play the game the way it was meant to be played. Even the Game Boy received a version of Robocop, and while it's stripped down, it does play pretty good. Nice animation and pretty good music considering the limitations of the Game Boy. The NES port was a huge seller, so this is probably the most widely recognized version. After the initial introduction, when the gameplay actually starts, you'll notice that Robocop must have went on the Slim Fast diet. Also, it looks like he is trying out for the Blue Man Group since his armor is now a nice shade of blue and not silver. The playability though is very good, and so is the sound. The Atari ST version more faithfully resembles the coin-op than its 8-bit counterparts. The animation is nice and smooth and plays really well considering it only uses one button. The music is pretty good, but there are no sound effects. The first thing I noticed when I booted up the Amiga version for the first time is that the voice of Robocop is not from the movie. For some reason, they used a sound-alike with a British accent.
Serve the public trust. Protect the innocent. Uphold the law.
The game is just a port of the Atari ST version, but with a greatly improved sound effects and music. It plays almost exactly the same, although the scrolling is a bit smoother on the Atari ST version. Robocop was a huge hit and it spawned numerous sequels and spin-offs both on the computer and in the arcade. The success of the arcade games cemented the relationship between Ocean Software, Data East, and Orion Pictures. And Robocop 2, in the arcade scene, every cabinet that is shown are all Data East games. Robocop is a classic. I'm talking about the movie and the video game. If you ever want a little mindless run-and-gun action, this is the game for you. Drop a few quarters the next time you see it. You'll be glad you did. If you would like to support me on Patreon, please visit my page down below. Also, please share, like, and subscribe to my channel. It's the only way it can grow. Thank you for watching.